You know, one thing I always thought was cool was when Boruto and Naruto had similarities between them, with Boruto's design being a callback to the older series. It's a part of the reason why I love Dragon Ball GT. I know some dislike that show for what seems like an endless list of reasons, but one reason I loved that series was because it called back to the other series, such as the original Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. Honestly, the Boruto series, particularly the anime, has received a sort of similar reception, but all the same, I still enjoy it, particularly because it's fun, has callbacks, etc, etc. One of my favorite callbacks is the whole demon inside of me trope that has seemingly become a lot more common in anime today. Within Naruto was the Nine-Tails demon fox, the same that his mother possessed. And as for Boruto, his own little curse mark is on the palm of his hand, and what's sealed within him is not a demon fox, but an Otsutsuki. The latter is probably a worse situation, as Naruto never really had to worry about being taken over by Kurama unless he was overusing his power, but I digress. That leads me to the question I want to tackle today. What if Naruto got the Karma Seal instead of the Nine-Tails? Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, we publish a new video every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. The Amagi's reach stretches beyond just this channel, so if you're a fan of us, please consider subscribing to our other channels and following us on all of our social media. Help us reach our goal of passing 100,000 followers on all of our accounts by the end of the year. The story starts where it always does, Naruto's birth. As you would remember, Kushina going into labor weakened the seal on Kurama, meaning now was the perfect time to strike. The child was born, screaming into the world behind the roaring of a tailed beast. As soon as the nurses took him up, Minato was instructed to close the seal. As he was doing so, however, our favorite identity thief in a tiger mask shows up and nabs the baby, threatening its life unless Minato delivers the Nine-Tails to him. Now, normally, this is the point where everything gets real in Konoha, but suppose that a hand grabs Toby from behind. One might be able to say that it would phase right through him, but that's not how this works. Toby rarely makes his whole body do this. The only time he uses Kamui on his whole body is when his body teleports. Honestly, Kamui isn't even supposed to work like that, but Obito was just crafty enough to use it to make himself intangible, or functionally so. That being said, he only makes certain parts of his body intangible at a time, and he generally can only do so when he realizes what's about to happen. And right now, he doesn't. So more than likely the hand doesn't go through, and on the off chance that it does, it grabs the baby, so either way, it's a win-win here. But if you can already guess who this might be, there's a chance that it might not even work anyway, as Momoshiki has the ability to absorb jutsu. Now, don't quote me on this, but he should be able to absorb space-time jutsu if he can touch the practitioner, which he logically should be able to do. If I'm wrong, just tell me in the comments. Either way, Momoshiki touches Toby, and Toby bolts, having lost control of the situation with the sudden appearance of a chakra so massive that it makes all people within Konoha, save Kushina, seem like small taters. Not to mention, he can feel pointed fingernails, and if he ever turns back to look, well, the visage of Momoshiki is unearthly. Unless you have prior experience with something like this, you might think that Satan himself crawled up to take that baby from you. And so Toby, without a word, relinquishes the baby to the new figure holding what appeared to be a turtle. For a brief moment, Minato, Toby, and Momoshiki, the latter of which is now holding baby Naruto, look around at each other before Toby hits the old Dusty with his Kamui. Momoshiki looks at the baby in his hands with a slightly nefarious smile. I was right on the mark. Perfect. Minato now has his attention purely on Momoshiki. Kushina, by this time, was trying to turn her head in ungodly ways just to see what was going on. Minato looked at the Otsutsuki. You're bleeding. Momoshiki looked down at what had once been a pure white tunic, now stained with his own blood and viscera. Indeed, he responded. Minato held his hands out. Give me the baby and I'll call help for you. Momoshiki smiled, his pointed canines making him seem like some carnivorous beast. Is that so? And why would you do that? Minato kept his voice calm and serious. Because you're a hero. You saved my baby from death. Momoshiki looked down at the baby that was still crying in his arms. He shushed the baby with a finger. I suppose I did. Either way, it's too late for me. Or maybe it isn't. Minato was gripping a kunai behind his back tightly. Momoshiki looked up, his golden Byakugan glowing in the dark, his golden Rinnegan in the center of his forehead just below his two massive horns. But alas, the being stepped forward and offered to Minato the child in his arms. Minato took the baby and took a step back. Momoshiki stood there, his long white hair flowing in the wind. Minato handed the baby to Kushina. The child bore on its skin a little blood, likely from the mysterious figure before them. Minato looked back at the dead nurses, among which was Biwako. He looked back at this person. Let us help you." The man smiled. "You've already done enough. Thank you." And without another word, the man began self-immolation. He burned until there was nothing left. This left both Kushina and Minato absolutely confused, and who wouldn't be? They recognized that someone had been targeting them, but whoever rescued them was a pure mystery. After this, Minato came to Kushina's side. "Is Naruto okay?" Kushina held her crying child close. "I think so. He doesn't seem like he's hurt." Minato let out a sigh of relief. He then called for Anbu reinforcements and followed his gut, teleporting Kushina to another location where she and the baby would be safe. It was there that he finished closing the seal. They checked out the child to ensure it hadn't been hurt and was healthy. Eventually, a nurse walked in. "Mr. and Mrs. Namikaze?" Minato looked over. "What is it? Is everything alright with Naruto?" The nurse looked down. "We're still checking him out, but we found an anomaly." Kushina felt her heart jump. "Anomaly? What kind? Is he okay?" The nurse nodded. "As far as we can tell, he is. But we discovered a strange mark between both of the child's clavicles. It's in the shape of a perfect diamond. We at first believed it to be a birthmark, but upon closer inspection, it almost seems like a curse mark." Minato and Kushina looked to each other and then back to the nurse. "A curse mark?" The nurse nodded. "Currently, it doesn't seem to be active, but it is deeply troubling. Can you think of anyone who may or may not have been able to plant one directly on your baby?" Minato looked back at Kushina. It had to be that weirdo. "But why would he put a curse mark on our baby?" Minato shook his head as to say that he didn't know. The doctors would hold Naruto for observation for a few weeks, but eventually they decided to release him. Minato and Kushina would take him home. They'd keep an eye on the curse mark for a time, but eventually it became natural to them. They had never seen a curse mark like this before and had no idea what it might do, but all things considered, it went this long without activating, and so perhaps it wasn't complete or wasn't dangerous. They eventually forgot about it and continued to raise Naruto up as he normally would have been raised. He would enter the academy where he was considered a very popular boy. This was partly because he was son of the Hokage. However, he did have a charm all his own. He was dopey, yes, but he had his mother's fire, and his determination made him all the cooler to be around. Sasuke was here too, and he was the other cool kid. And considering that due to Minato's survival and no attack on the Hidden Leaf by the Ninetales, a lot of stuff does change in the series, the Uchiha's survival being one of these things. Naruto is considered bright by normal standards due to having proper tutors as the son of the Hokage. This causes Naruto to excel in his studies and graduate right on time. And of course, Minato will ask Kakashi to train Naruto's team. You think he would have anyone but his own apprentice teaching his son? Naruto is far more prideful than before due to having never really needed to struggle, being constantly praised for his skill. This is evident to Kakashi in their first real training session. In their attempt to get the bells, however, this exposes their weaknesses. That being how the son of the Hokage and the son of the Uchiha clan leader have an intense rivalry, which puts an immediate kibosh on any concept of teamwork. They're trying so desperately to outdo one another that they forget that they can't beat Kakashi alone. So yeah, they totally fail the test. But it's not like Kakashi can send them away. He was requisitioned by the Hokage himself to train these children, so the best this did was tell Kakashi where he had to focus his training. And so Kakashi began teaching them the values of being on a team, and the general scenario continues to play out the same. Minato, in an effort to help Team 7 grow, sends them on a mission to the Land of Waves along with Tazuna. Now, Naruto and Sasuke are both heavily skilled by this time, so the Demon Brothers are like nothing to them. Well, that's an exaggeration. They are difficult, but neither Naruto nor Sasuke freeze, and both respond in a competent way, which leads to the defeat of the Demon Brothers. Kakashi realizes that Tazuna lied to them about the difficulty of this mission and that it should be Chunin level. But considering what Sasuke and Naruto just displayed, it doesn't really seem like they'll mind continuing, and so they do. When Naruto and Sasuke face Zabuza, they find themselves a bit more overwhelmed. It's then that Sasuke and Naruto put their noggins together and come up with an actual plan. Teamwork makes the dream work, am I right? Zabuza is forced to retreat from this as he normally is, and Kakashi congratulates them on their teamwork. Now, nothing too major changes at this point, but when they get to the bridge's construction, there is a big change. Particularly at the point when Sasuke gets pierced by needles and goes down. Naruto believes that Sasuke is dead, and that's when everything changes. His emotional state fraying, what lives within decides to pop out and say hi. But instead of the Ninetales coming out, Naruto merely stands. From the diamond on his chest comes out many lines that cross his entire body. A single horn forms on the side of his head as his eye turns into a Byakugan. He looks up at Haku and then around himself. He begins to wonder how long he'd been asleep. Haku now looks at him with caution. What is this form? Naruto, or whoever you might call him now, looks down before looking back up at Haku, smiling and raising a hand that releases an energy blast so large that it eradicates every mirror and Haku along with them. Kakashi and Zabuza look back at the bright light and only see Naruto rise out of it into the air. He hovers there and looks about. He looks at himself. I'm no expert on human growth cycles, but I would suppose I'm about 105,000 standard hours old, give or take. He sees Kakashi and Zabuza. Which of you can tell me where I am? Kakashi looks up at him in awe. Zabuza speaks. The hell is this? Since when can Genin fly? Narushiki looks down at Zabuza with contempt. Didn't your mother ever tell you that it's rude to answer a question with a question? He releases about 5 chakra rods that pin Zabuza down. He then looks to Kakashi, who is in complete shock. Now, tell me, where am I? Kakashi speaks. The land of waves, in the land of fire. Narushiki scoffs. You humans have such strange naming conventions. He raises his hand to release another blast of energy. Before he could, however, Kakashi jumped off the bridge. The bridge was cracked and severed in two by this blast. It almost threatened to fall. It was then that he hears a voice call out to him. Naruto! He looks back. Sakura-chan. He shakes his head. Damn it, he's still awake. He holds his hand up to blast Sakura, but before he can, Naruto's other eye opens. His eyes cross to look at each other, his left eye growing angrier as his right eye began to close. And in the moment it did, Naruto's form ended and he fell to the ground. Sakura caught him. She held him, confused at what had happened. Naruto would slowly wake up. Sakura, what happened? Team 7 would eventually be escorted back to the village where Naruto would be sedated and Sasuke would be left to recover from his injuries. Kakashi would stand there by the window, looking in, on crutches due to the height with which he fell into the water being enough to cause a fracture in his leg. Minato would eventually show up, having come straight from work. What happened? Kakashi looked over. I have no idea. Minato looked in. Is Naruto hurt? Kakashi shook his head. No, but he's still sedated. Minato was shocked. Why? Kakashi then began to explain what had happened to him. Your son single-handedly killed a Chunin-level shinobi and a Jonin-level shinobi with ease. He flew, possessed strange markings across his body, grew a horn, and even possessed a Byakugan. Minato's eyes widened as he thought back. If anyone had said those traits without talking about Naruto, Minato would have instantly assumed that they were talking about that man who had saved him from death. Kakashi immediately thereafter told him it seemed that there was someone else in his mind. He didn't know his location or age and continued to call us humans. Those things all but confirmed a theory that he had. The curse mark on Naruto's chest was some way of reincarnating. It was like the mind-body switch technique that the Yamanaka clan were capable of using, but only it was possible to use after death. Minato sighed and rubbed his face. The day he long feared finally reared its ugly head. Naruto's seal had activated. He looked over. If they wake him up, which person will wake first? Kakashi shrugged. There are some specialists in there currently. Here is an even called in Tsunade on special request. Tsunade? Minato asked with genuine surprise. Kakashi nodded. Yes, she came as a favor to the Hokage. She's in there now. Minato stepped to the door. Do you think it's okay if I go in? Kakashi once more shrugged. You're asking the wrong man. Minato opened the door carefully and stepped to the bed where they had Naruto laying. Naruto was still unconscious. Minato approached Tsunade. Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt. Tsunade looked back for a moment before returning her attention to Naruto's chart. Lord Fourth. Minato walked to Naruto's side and gently took his hand. He looked to Tsunade. Can you tell me what's happening? Tsunade, without even looking up, spoke. Your son possesses a strange mark on his chest. It's not too unlike my strength of 100 seal, but it seems far more dangerous. We've tried using the evil sealing method on it, but it did not take. It appears that someone has implanted their chakra into your son. But not just that, their genetics too. Your son's genetics have changed since his last blood test. Over 80% of his current DNA has suddenly become something we're not finding in nature. What does that mean? Tsunade finally looked up at him. As best as I can tell, your son is a clone. Minato was startled. A clone? Impossible. I was there when he was born. Tsunade shook her head. No, I mean, he's becoming a clone. Essentially, this seal on his chest appears to be designed to implant someone's mind and soul into their host. But further, it also seems to be implanting DNA. Your son is being turned into a clone. Minato was confused. Why? Tsunade then continued. It appears to be like a backup. Think of it like this. You have a laptop and that laptop's keyboard is broken. The screen's cracked and it doesn't turn on anymore. So what do? You take out the hard drive and put it into another computer. It's just like that. Minato wasn't the most technical man in the world, but he at least understood what she was getting at. So someone died and is using that mark on his chest to reincarnate? Tsunade nodded. Minato then asked the obvious question. Is there a way to stop it? Tsunade shook her head. We've exhausted all the treatments we have. It won't slow down. It's editing his genes at an increased rate. We can't keep up with it. Every time we try to thwart it, it simply bypasses us. We've tried the 5-element seal, the evil sealing method, and we're even breaking into Uzumaki clan techniques to try and put a stop to this. But the best we've been able to do is mildly slow it down. Minato thinks for a moment. Can we wake him up? Tsunade nods. As it stands, we might have been able to suppress the second consciousness, at least for now. She adjusts the anesthesia. If you wish, you can also take him home, but don't go too far with him. I may need to tweak treatment a little. Slowly, Naruto begins to wake up. Dad? Minato smiles and pushes the boy's hair out of his eyes. Hi, Naruto. Naruto looks around, still groggy. Where am I? You're in Konoha General. Naruto thinks back. I must have gotten hurt pretty bad. How many toes did I lose? Minato laughs as Naruto smiles up at him. Really though, how hurt am I? You aren't, actually, Tsunade tells him. Naruto wonders then why he's in the hospital. Tsunade looks to Minato and simply stands off to the side by the window. Naruto sees this. Uh-oh, that can't be good. He looks up at Minato. Shoot straight with me, Dad. How sick am I? Minato shook his head. He looked down and pointed to the mark on Naruto's chest. Naruto looked down. Holy crap, it's like someone painted every single sight and reticule from every Call of Duty game on my chest at once. What happened? Minato then began to explain what had happened in the Land of Waves. And so, Lady Tsunade's been experimenting with different seals to keep this curse mark at bay. Naruto sits there for a moment and thinks about it. Minato helps sit him up and grabs Naruto's clothes so he can change. We're gonna take you home now. They seem to have been able to hold off the other consciousness with these seals, so you should be safe to let loose in the village. Naruto nodded and changed into his clothes. Together, he and Minato walked out of the hospital. Naruto didn't talk much. Minato had to get the Chunin exams ready, so he had to work. Naruto was excused from duty for the foreseeable future. He spent a lot of time at home with his mother. His mood by that point was pretty dark. He wouldn't eat or sleep. He would smile, but it was obvious that every smile was himself forcing it for his parents' sake. It was heartbreaking, and so she and Naruto would often go out places to do things. They would go to the market, and every so often they would visit Minato to have lunch. There, they would let Naruto decide if he wanted to hang out with mom or dad. He tended to mix it up, depending on how much work Minato had to do. Given that most of his work consisted of preparing for the Chunin exams, he wasn't always busy and had time to hang around with his father. As time grew closer, Minato would ask Naruto if he would like to enjoy the Chunin exams with him. Given that none of Team 7 had signed up for the exams, neither Kurenai nor Asuma felt that they were required to do so either. And since the Hidden Sound Village was never formed due to Minato not being afraid to pull the trigger on Orochimaru, this meant that there were far fewer contestants this time. This meant that when the exhibition rounds came around, they would not be required to take a month off, as they had just enough to not go over the limit, meaning that they could wrap it all up in just a few days at most. Naruto seemed to enjoy himself pretty well then. He and Minato would watch it together, and even Kushina would take some time away to watch with them. On one particular day, after watching the exhibitions, Naruto and Minato went to the park for lunch. They sat there and bonded over their meal. Who do you favor winning the whole thing? Minato asked. Naruto thought about it. I think Neji'll win. His defenses seem nigh impregnable. Minato laughed. No defense is impregnable, but I must admit it'll be hard to beat him. I'd throw my money on him too. Either him or that Lee kid. When Might Guy trains up an apprentice, he trains him up good. Minato noticed that Naruto had hardly touched anything on his plate. He let off a calm smile and slid his hand over Naruto's. Listen, Naruto, we will figure this out. Naruto looked down. Last appointment, my DNA was 85% something else. Yeah? Minato asked. Naruto looked up. Does that mean I'm not your son anymore? Minato couldn't understand. What? Naruto explained. When I was born with half of your genes and half of mom's. But now 85% of my genes are something not you. Does that mean I'm not your son anymore? Minato shook his head. No, it'll never mean that. Even if you were 100% something else, you would always be my son. I was there when your mother gave birth to you. Genes don't dictate who family is. Love does that. Love is the DNA of the soul, and bonds are the chains that hold us together. You'll always be my son, and I swear that that won't change. Naruto nodded. Dad? What is it, Naruto? Dad, will you promise that if I turn into the other guy, that... Naruto took a deep breath. That you'll kill me? Minato felt his heart almost stop. Kill you? Why would I do that? That won't have to happen. We'll figure it out, I promise. Naruto looked up at him as tears ran down his cheeks. Dad, I don't want to hurt you, or Mom, or the village. Please, promise me, if I ever become a danger to everyone, that you'll choose the whole over me. Promise me. Swear it on your role as Hokage. Minato saw how serious Naruto was. He saw the conviction in his son's glassy eyes. I promise. Naruto got out of his chair and hugged his father. The two sat in the Kage's viewing box together. On the right was Rasa, the Kazekage of the Hidden Sand Village. Rasa would continue to glance to the side, seeing Naruto sitting on a stool with Minato. Minato would turn to Rasa. Your son, Gaara, is coming up. I heard he and his siblings broke the record for the quickest time through the second phase, the Forest of Death. You must be so proud. Rasa nodded. Sure. Naruto watched closely from the box, leaning against the railing. He's going up against Neji. Both of those guys have an absolute defense. I can't wait to see this. Minato smiled, knowing that this was the most excited he had seen Naruto since the seal on his chest became active. The battle began and Neji rushed in. Gaara stood there, his gourd producing for him the sand that would serve as both offense and defense. The sand could not really harm Neji due to the gentle fist style and Neji's general taijutsu skills. However, Neji could not strike Gaara due to the latter possessing a sand barrier that flat out ate up Neji's attacks. This became a battle of attrition, and considering that Gaara possessed a tailed beast, his chakra reserves were astronomically higher than Neji's. Even if Neji had landed a shot on one or more of Gaara's tenketsu, he would have broken free fairly easily due to this extra well of chakra popping the pressure point back open. In the end, it was Gaara who was victorious, and Neji was left unable to avenge Rock Lee. But at this time, there was an explosion in the Kage's box. Naruto was knocked over the side, holding onto the railing by one hand as Gaara released his tailed beast. Minato cried out Naruto's name and tried to save him, but behind him, Rasa struck out, trying to kill Minato. The Anbu were trying to evacuate the stadium. One of the agents saw him and looked up. Hold tight, honorable son. We'll send someone up to, The agent was picked up by the One Tail and bitten in half, swallowed by the beast. It let out a roar. Naruto screamed in terror as it did this. Suddenly, the beast noticed Naruto there. It reached out and picked him from the railing. Naruto was in its grip and headed closer to its mouth to suffer the same fate as the Anbu agent. He screamed as it opened its mouth. There was a snap within him as the hand of the beast shattered to sandy dust. Naruto hovered there momentarily. He looked up, his Byakugan activated. For a moment, Narushiki looked at the beast with wonder and amazement. Oh, you're but a fraction of the Ten Tails. That's interesting. To be honest, Momoshiki was impressed. Honestly, it's amazing that your Sage of Six Paths thought up such a plot. Seal the functionality of his 10 tails behind 9 beasts. Truly a move worthy of an Otsutsuki. Shukaku raised his fist to smash Naruto, but the hand was blown off by Momoshiki again. But alas, I am growing tired of this. He rushed forward and plucked Gaara right from his tailed beast and head him up. With a simple flick of his wrist, Gaara's neck was cleanly snapped. Narushiki dropped the body as he crossed his arms and hovered a little higher. He looked down. My, has Konoha changed throughout the years. At about that time, Minato was finishing off Rasa. He looked back and saw Naruto in the air. Naruto, no! He would rush forward, and utilizing his flying Raijin Jutsu, he teleported to the mark he had placed on the inside of Naruto's jacket, and began pulling him down to the ground. Momoshiki cursed the Kage for dragging them down, and managed to just break their fall with his flight. Now, in the middle of the arena, Minato managed to stand. Momoshiki scoffed. You know, you're nowhere near as strong as your son is. Or was. Or I guess never will be. Timelines and all that. Minato stood there, resolute. He knew exactly what he needed to do. He rushed at Momoshiki, deploying plenty of shadow clones. Momoshiki raised his hands to form 2 finger pistols where he proceeded to fire off round after round of chakra blast like a machine gun. Some Minatos were hit, others dodged, but all managed to draw close enough to threaten Narushiki. Unbeknownst to Momoshiki, the real Minato was coming up underneath him. Minato put his hand on the seal and began to add a new formula to reinstitute the seal. Momoshiki went to claw Minato's face but found himself passing out before he could. His knees hit the ground and Minato caught Naruto before he could fall back. He took Naruto to the hospital. The staff there were already working very hard. Thanks to the efforts of the Anbu, few people were injured or killed, but that wasn't to say that there were no casualties. And those who were here were getting expert treatment. Shizune would be the one to draw the blood while Tsunade had her back turned. Once that test was over, Tsunade would check the seal. And you said that this consciousness broke through this. Minato nodded. Tsunade sighed. As I told you, we're only slowing it down. We can't stop it. Minato's shoulders drooped in sorrow. Kushina did eventually show up in the hospital and sat by Naruto, opposite to Minato. Did it happen again? She asked. Minato solemnly bobbed his head up and down. It was everything I could do to control it. He single-handedly overpowered a tailed beast. I was lucky he wasn't being serious. If he had truly tried to kill me with everything he had, I'd be dead right now. I highly doubt I'll get away with this a second time. He waited by his bedside until Tsunade walked in. Results of the blood test came back. It's progressed. He's at 95%. One more outburst like this and it's over. Kushina looked back at her. How much time do we have left before he reaches 100? Tsunade took a deep breath. Measuring based on previous data, no more than a few days, a week tops. Tears began to spring from her eyes. No, not my baby. Not my baby. Tsunade looked down. You can take him home whenever you want. Spend as much time with him as possible, not just for your sakes, but for his. Tsunade left. Kushina continued to cry, all while Minato held close to his son's hand. There's gotta be a way, he said. They took Naruto home and let him rest with them. Despite the danger he posed, they insisted that he sleep with them in bed. No matter what came next, they wanted to face it as a family. All night long, neither could sleep save Naruto, but mostly because Naruto was wiped out from the exertion of his transformation. Minato looked to Kushina. I think I have an idea. She looked over. What is it? Orochimaru. Kushina was surprised by this statement. Orochimaru? How can we get help from him? He's dead. Minato nodded. Right now, I wish he weren't. Surely he could tell us what to do, but I do have the next best thing. At least one of his labs has yet to be checked. We know where it is, but we never went there. Apparently he had taken material from a test subject and was developing it there to create curse marks. Kushina sat up. Do you think that'll work? Minato shrugged. I hope. The next day they had breakfast together and packed up. They informed Naruto that they were going to try something. This was their last-ditch attempt, and everyone knew it. So they left home and proceeded through the woods for a few days. They could feel the hands of time crawling up their backs, ready to strangle them. They didn't have much time left, but finally they made it to the facility. Minato told them to wait back there as there might be traps. He walked in and began to check the place out. When he was content it was safe, he called them in. They entered the lab and eventually sat down to find the only working computer. They began combing through the files. They looked for anything they could, reading through each file over the course of a few hours. Eventually, they came across a file called File C-Mark-R. They opened it up and found it spoke of curse marks, how they work. But finally, at the bottom, there was something for removal. They read through the theory on how it could work, but upon reaching the bottom, they were horrified to find that the method was listed as inconclusive, with a note being tacked on mentioning the death of every subject who had had their mark removed by the hypothesized method. In anger, Minato stood and picked up the desktop screen and threw it against the wall, all while Kushina broke down into tears. Naruto just sat there silently. Minato turned around and looked at his son. I'm sorry, Naruto. If I could trade my life for yours, I would. Naruto looked up. Dad, I want to go home. Minato wiped the sweat from his lip. We can't. If you turn into that monster, you'll kill everyone. Naruto grew sad. Kushina looked up. We have a family home just beyond the village proper. Still in the village, but away from anyone. If we go there, it should be safe. Minato looked to Naruto. It's good enough. Minato put his hands on Kushina and Naruto and used the flying Raijin Jutsu to teleport them to that home. They appeared right in front of a dagger on the wall. The home was small, consisting of merely one room, but it was homey. That night, they all cuddled in bed for what they feared would be the last time. Kushina prayed for at least one more day with her child. They all rested, and the day after, they woke up and just enjoyed the time they had left. They sat outside as the sun began to set. Momoshiki sure is taking his sweet time, Naruto said. Kushina looked over. Who? It's the consciousness inside of me. He says he hates being called that, and to call him Momoshiki. He says it's almost as bad, but he would rather human lips spit his name unworthily than to not be acknowledged at all. Minato scoffed. Acknowledge him. I would rather kill him. You'll have your chance soon, Naruto said. Kushina tried to lighten the mood. Let's go for a nature walk. And so they began to walk. Kushina pointed out birds and bugs, but as they strolled, Naruto dropped to his knees. Kushina and Minato came to his side. What's wrong? Naruto looked up and with the calmest yet most melancholic tone, simply stated the facts. My chest burns. I think it's time. Naruto pulled out a kunai he had kept with him. It was one of the ones that Minato had given him when he taught him the flying Raijin. It had a sealing formula similar to Minato's in it, but it also had Naruto's name. He handed it to Minato. Do it. I want to die when I can still be held by you. Minato gripped the blade as his vision grew hazy. Tears dripped down onto it. He looked up at Naruto, who had already opened his jacket and raised his shirt. As quick and as hard as possible, Dad. Minato gripped the blade tightly. I don't think I can. Naruto looked to him. You swore. You're the Hokage. It's your duty. Minato wiped his eyes. I know, but nothing. You're the Hokage. This is your job. It's my last request. Kill me by your own hands. Minato held the dagger and looked to his son. How could he? He brought Naruto into this world. How could he take him out of it? This was cruel. It was unfair. How could he be expected to kill his own son? do it, Naruto cried at him, tears running from his face. Kushina put her hand on Minato's. They looked at each other, both gripping the kunai now. They nodded, took a deep breath, and pushed their hands forward as hard and as fast as they could. Naruto's eyes went wide. Minato and Kushina were in utter shock. They looked down at the kunai. It had stopped just an inch short of Naruto's flesh. The hoop at the back of the kunai had been caught on a finger. Naruto's finger. Minato looked up. Naruto? Naruto looked at his father in terror. Dad, I didn't do that. Suddenly there was a burst of chakra. It knocked Kushina back. Minato, still holding the dagger, dug it into the dirt and looked up. Naruto cried out in pain as the black markings covered his body. He slowly pushed to his feet, a single Byakugan opening. How touching. But it's far too late for that, Lord Fourth. Minato rose to his feet as well. He was desperate to reach the seal. He gripped his kunai so tightly that Naruto's name he had etched into it left a visible mark on his hand. He rushed forward with his shadow clones, each clone rushing him too. Momoshiki sighed. So sad. You really think the same thing will work twice? He swiped his hand at the clones and knocked them all down. Minato came out from under him, but Momoshiki slashed him. This one was also revealed to be but a clone, and Minato came down from the trees above. He literally had the drop on him. I just need to activate the seal again. Maybe we can suppress Momoshiki. Suddenly, Momoshiki utilized 8 trigrams palm rotation. Minato was knocked back. He looked up. Momoshiki sighed. That was close, but sadly, it was a no-go. He began approaching Minato. Please tell me you intend to die for this brat. I would love to kill you with your own son's hands. It's what you get for being so weak. Minato thought for a moment and it came to him. Yes, I do. I plan to die for my son, and I'll take you with me. He began weaving hand signs, invoking the Reaper Death Seal. Momoshiki saw this and already knew what it meant. No, no! He ran forward and put a hand through Minato's stomach. Minato coughed up blood. My turn. Suddenly, the Reaper pushed its hand through Minato and into Momoshiki. It began to pull. Suddenly, it pulled from Naruto the spirit of Momoshiki. Naruto's left eye opened alongside the Byakugan, which was now his. Dad, no! Minato fell to his knees. Naruto held them as slowly his features receded back to what he had been. He shook his head. No, it was me who was supposed to die today, not you! Minato smiled. I know. How blessed am I. Kushina came to his side. Minato, what have you done? He looked to his wife. I did it. I saved him from Momoshiki. But at what cost? Naruto asked. Is this really worth it? Minato nodded. For you, I would give everything. I count myself lucky. To die for you, Naruto. He smiled. See, I told you. We'd figure it out. And with that, Minato breathed his last. His soul left his body, claimed by the Reaper. Together, Kushina and Naruto lamented over him. And all the while, Naruto asked himself why. Why couldn't it have been me? Do I got you all sad yet? Good. Now I don't have to cry alone. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Yep, and I do plan on dropping a second part to this soon. I hope you will all be ready for it. Until that time, peace out.
Did you enjoy our video? Well then be sure to check out these other great videos from the Amagi, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.